Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Gray Area. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always, Grooming and Reviews 101, a.k.a. The Ghost of Sparta, a.k.a. Peter, a.k.a. Panayotis. Good evening, sir. And we are joined once again and privileged to have Peter's mother tonight. Anna is with us this evening. Good evening, Anna. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Canis.
I'm so tired.
Well, we hope not to keep you long today, but we had so much fun when you were on the show last time, and Peter was saying that she wants to come on again with us and whatnot. So we certainly want to give you a forum and a space to join us again, especially on tonight's topic, which for many people is a sensitive one. But we want to deal with the topic of death. So last week we talked about, I know Peter does a lot in terms of taking care of you and making sure that your health is good, but we all come to that end of life where death is a reality that we have to deal with. And so I wanted to continue that dialogue and discussion and to get your perspective on death. I'm sure you've had your parents, you've had people who passed before, and obviously certainly you're recovering from cancer. Just want to get your view or perspective on death. What are you thinking about these days? Do you think about dying, and how does your faith? I know you're Greek Orthodox as well, so how does your faith help you in understanding and dealing with the subject of death? Now, trust me, we don't want you going anywhere soon. You're going to be here for a long time, but we certainly want to, just get your perspective and how you've dealt with death of loved ones in the past, and what do you think about death now? So I know, Peter, if you need to translate some of that, you can certainly go ahead and summarize that.
Να μάθει πώς νιώθεις όταν πεθαίνω, πώς και για πώς ένιωθες.
Πολύ άσχημα.
Πριν να τελειώσω, μετά, με το αυτό, ρωτάει πώς νιώθεις εσύ όταν λέει κάποιος για πεθάνεις, τι σκέφτεσαι και πώς σε βοηθάει να είσαι χριστιανή.
Βοηθάει.
Αρχίσεις με τον παππού και τη γιαγιά πρώτα.
Yeah.
Πες το.
The first, my father died.
Mm-hmm.
Passed away. And after my mom passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Is it terrible?
Yeah.
You know why? Before my father, my mother passed away, everybody's coming, friends, this and that, the home, and away the present from here. Is everything okay? My mom helped everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? My mom passed away here and taken my mom and I go to my country.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody coming. All right?
Mm-hmm.
My mother in the cemetery for the special room, the Saturday and Sunday, no open to the cemetery. It's open for somebody, almost not for somebody go to the grave.
I think
okay.
So on weekends they don't do burials in Greece, if that makes sense.
On weekends, there's no burials in Greece.
Correct. It's open to go visit your loved ones who passed, to visit their their sites, but you don't have the opportunity to go. Nobody's gonna be buried, so you have to do a Monday through Friday, if that makes sense.
And what is there a reason for that? Is there a cultural or just a business reason for that?
Δεν γίνουν κηδείες Σάββατο και Κυριακή.
Απαγορεύει η θρησκεία μας λόγω εκκλησία. Στην Κυριακή έχει εκκλησία, έχει μνημόσυνα που κάνουν το στάρι και αυτά, γι' αυτό δεν γίνονται κηδείες.
Και το Σάββατο?
Και το Σάββατο είναι επειδή ετοιμάζουν για Δευτέρα να ανοίγουν τους λάκους και αυτά.
So Saturday is usually they get ready to open a new ground for burials. Usually that's why, and get the body ready for the funeral. Sunday is a religious reason. Sunday is a church day. Student goes to church, and usually a lot of memorial service happen on Sundays. So
right.
Saturday and Sunday, that's why they're up. I won't say off limits, but it is off limits without saying off limits, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Gotcha.
What?
She's not. I'm stay all night by myself. Nobody coming, and it, like a little bit 2-3 hours. They help to me, not to then and give me the food or this or that. No, little bit speak, little bit, my brain is a little bit normal,
So what happened at the time? My grandmother passed away in the States here, and so we had to fly her out to Greece. So we had to get what's it called? The casket. Thank you, casket.
Caskets, right?
English, ma. So casket in America we have metal ones. In Greece they're all wooden. So we had to get her, put her on a plane, fly. She had to be in the same plane where they cannot be separated during the transport. I believe αυτό είναι η εκκλησία όταν φεύγεις επένδυσουμε στο ίδιο πλάνο με τη γιαγιά, με την εκκλησία αυτό πετράει, σωστά. Όταν πήγες τη γιαγιά με το ίδιο πλάνο, δεν ήσουν?
Ναι.
Αυτό είναι με την εκκλησία, λέει
είναι
αυτό.
Κάτω, ναι.
Αλλά με την εκκλησία πρέπει να ήσουν μαζί.
Ναι.
That is by church rules. She had to travel with the same plane the body is, and her, her daughter, my mother, pretty much.
Okay.
So when she landed, they had calls were made. My mom made a lot of phone calls ahead of time. The funeral home was there preparing her, took her from the airport to the funeral house, transport her from a metal to a wooden one, and prepped her body for burial.
Right.
So her complaint was at the time, my mom and my grandma always used to bring gifts, like every family does, or families and friends. When my grandma passed away, nobody fucking showed up. Nobody even offered a glass of water to her. Nobody came over 5 minutes. Hey, Anna, are you okay? Wow. She was by herself because me and my father were here in the States.
Right.
My godfather, that's her cousin, that's the only person who said, hey, cool, 1 or 2 hours, because he has, he has other responsibility too. So he can only, do that. And that's fine. We understand that. But as a family members or friends who call yourself like family, cross the street, couldn't come over for like 2-3 hours for a cup of coffee, make sure or have it.
That's very strange. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a smoker. So she let me have at least a couple of cigarettes with you, just hang out, just to get my mind normal and not think about burying my mother.
Right.
In my case, my grandmother.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that was? That no one.
Γιατί νομίζεις εσύ γνώμη σου δεν ήρθε κανένας να σου δώσει ένα ποτήρι καφέ, να πιει ένα καφέ μαζί σου, ένα τσιγάρο? Τι?
Γιατί δεν είχα να τους δώσω δώρα και τέτοια όπως κάθε φορά.
There was no gifts or no money give out. That's all they cared about.
So again, from what I understand, if you are in the United States and say you go back to Greece, the expectation is that you bring money and gifts with you. I've seen that in a lot of.
Yeah, they think we're filthy fucking rich in the States.
Yeah, I've seen that in a lot of cultures. I know Indian culture as well. It's almost an expectation that you don't go. In fact, that's the reason why a lot of times Asian Indians don't go to India very often, because they understand if they go, the plane ticket's expensive and the time they take off, because you usually go for 2 or 3 weeks, but also the income or the funds or the gifts that you have to bring with you now. And it's gotten more difficult now because Indians are now up on game. Like I remember when my friends came in the mid-'80s, you could take like a Hershey's chocolate bar there, and because it was from America, they thought it was like Godiva chocolate. You know what I mean? Like a very high end, like from a chocolatier. Now they're up to the game.
Yeah.
So they're like, what? They know what Godiva is. They know what the high end treats are, and they know what what's considered luxury. So that's got a lot harder. But you're saying because she did not bring gifts to these people refused to show up.
Pretty much.
My
Wow.
mom, and all the time they're coming, you have a list. From this, from that, for that, okay?
Yes, right.
I'm go there, my mom for the phone. You take a pencil, paper, and talk to me. This. Come on.
Yeah.
I remember her bringing a couple of times like makeup palettes, and my mom doesn't know anything about brands, stuff like that. For somebody who doesn't know, like I know a little bit because I know data girls and stuff like that. They don't know.
Right.
So like a regular Walmart brand is cool, whatever. The to them is good.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
a Too Faced or Jeffree Star, those high end ones.
Right.
Don't ask how I know that. Just skip that part. But
Gotcha.
anyway,
Yes.
it's just to them. It's like it doesn't matter what kind of brand it was. You brought us something. You care. You care about the dollar value behind that. The thing is worth a lot of money because it's coming from America, and that we know that that's not true. You got now a lot of things you can find here. You can find in Greece too. So,
Sure.
but they don't care about that. They care about the gifts, and that's
Wow.
what pissed me off and pissed her off. I was young,
Right.
young enough, old enough to know, fuck you. Now I'm cutting you out of my life.
Wow.
All right. And a Monday morning, afternoon, no, after 1 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother's body, and coming for the church. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have the flowers, you have everything. 1 hour, the priest and the talk, this and that, and my mother, and I go every week to the church, and I fix the cook for 150 people.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandma volunteered cook for
Right.
people.
I got it.
Volunteer. And give me money and buy for them from Christmas something. Easter, my mom give me the money for the priest, and all together, and I buy the food from somebody who have nothing.
Mm.
And the priest, two priests, and talk to very good, speak to my mother.
That was a father
And a good woman, and I help to the church every year. And your daughter, and come vacation, and I come and clean it up to the kitchen downstairs, all the refrigerators, everything.
Right.
After they finish for the church, and I go to the cemetery go to the body for the grave. After, and I go outside, you have it, and I give you coffee and cookies, something from everybody coming from the church.
Mm-hmm.
Almost the problem from Greece, after 3 years, you take it out to the grave and take the bones. Somebody in a special for the cemetery people, and clean it up with wine, and stay to 5 days, and dry to the bones. And after you have a special boxes, metal boxes, with inside in a material, and take it to inside, hand, and all to the body bones.
So, in other words, after 5 years, the body has to be removed from...
No, 3 years.
3 times. After 3 years, the body has to be removed from their gravesite, and they clean the bones out like wine, like she said. And it's that's his specialty. He does this day in, day out, day in, day out. Once the wash with wine, they dry them out and they put them in a metal box, and it usually goes in a wall or in a special section in the cemetery.
And after,
and that is done for space reasons, or?
Γιατί το κάνουν αυτό, ρωτάει. Για χώρο, δεν έχουν χώρο, για ποιο λόγο?
Ναι, γιατί δεν υπάρχει χώρος.
Room mostly. We don't have any room now.
Και εντωμεταξύ, για να πάρεις τάφο, θέλεις.
To buy a gravesite to a plot, you need to be very rich for that. So
over $1 million.
Oh, it's over $1 million.
Over $1 million. So you have to be a millionaire in order to afford graveyard space.
Yeah, almost now for one piece, people, for the family. After my mother passed away, I'm passed away me, all right? And I go there. My husband, the same Liritz's name, last name,
Mm-hmm.
and I go inside there. Almost is very, very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all around to the cemetery, you have it special boxes with marble, and go to the basket inside, lock. I have a one key, me, one to the cemetery office, all right? And I have the picture, the day for the day, passed away my father, another down to my mother passed away.
Wow.
And I pay only $100 a year. Nothing. Almost to the big problem. And I stay there and open the gravy,
Mm-hmm.
and I see to the all the bones, all right?
Yes.
Sometimes no, δεν έχει λιώσει το μπάρι
So, in
καλά.
other words, how this works is my mother or a loved one, usually the son or the daughter, like in case my mother had to be there present when they opened the casket to see if the bones actually have, the body has decomposed, melted pretty much. Like
Μα
she
στην
said.
Ελλάδα συγγνώμη, το κάσκετ δεν έχει metal.
No, το
Δεν
ξέρω,
ξύλο και πάει όλο στο χώμα.
το είπαμε αυτό. We said that, mom, already. She's just clarifying about the casket or wooden, like we already spoke about.
Right.
So her thing is, like myself, for example, I would not be able, and being very honest, be able to, open the casket and see my mother's bones. Some people cannot handle that.
Sure.
Εσύ πώς έγινε, όταν είδες τα κόκκαλα της γιαγιάς, πώς ήσουν?
Ορίστε.
Όταν είδες τα κόκκαλα της γιαγιάς, πώς...
Ήτανε όλο από εδώ και πάνω, όλο τα πόδια, μόνο πίσω, γιατί δεν είχαν βγάλει το πλάστικ από το funeral.
Ναι, αυτό καταλαβαίνω, αλλά πώς ήσουν, πώς στο μυαλό σου?
Σαν τρελή ήμουνα.
See, like, so when they opened my grandma's grounds, her rear was not composed because there was plastic there.
Τα πήγαμε αλλού μετά.
And so they reburied her and let her. Πόσο καιρό ήταν ακόμα? Άλλο χρόνο ή 6 μήνες?
No, 6 μήνες.
Another 6 months. And she flew back to Greece in the next 6 months. And
Αλλά εγώ το έκανα χρόνο.
She decided to do a year just to be on a safe side, and that's an option. Her mindset, straight up, was fucked. Think about it for a second here, Paul. Your father has passed, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you have to remove his body from there, and you see his bones. How would your mindset would be?
No, I don't think I can I don't think I can handle that.
Τις φωτογραφίες που έχουν τον τάφο βγαλμένες.
She does have pictures of her gravesite because it's different. They don't just bury them in with ground and just have the tombstone. They literally put marble around it. Γιατί βάζουμε εμείς γύρω έτσι? Γιατί το κάνουν έτσι στην Ελλάδα?
Ποιο, για το μάρμαρο?
Ναι, είναι μην το κλέψουν το σώμα, για ποιο λόγο?
Ναι, βέβαια, γιατί μπορεί να πάει κάποιος και να τα πάρει να το αποκτώσει.
So the biggest reason they do marble around that is not only for decorations reasons. The other reason is grave robbers. If you have marble around it and it's sealed, you need a jackhammer to open that. It's not that easy. Is it across? You have different types, different tastes, quality. You can pick out, you want this, you want that, you want, like same thing with here is crosses. You got a big cross, small cross, a yellow cross, a green cross. You got the idea.
You have a vase for the flowers.
Yeah, you have a vase. You can put flowers and a candle that is a memorial candle. You can lit every day. Or you pay somebody to come around and light that.
Έχουμε ωραία καντήλια, πες του που ανάβουν.
Το είπα αυτό. Μόλις το είπα αυτό. Ναι, το είπα. I just said that, ma'am.
Over here, only καλό είναι που δεν τους βγάζουνε.
So one thing she does respect about American burials is you don't have to remove the body. Once it's in the ground, that's it. It stays there. Because your mindset, taking that body out and seeing those bones,
and
you get fucked.
First of all, it's very expensive.
Sure.
All right?
Sure.
And I say, for the funeral, from this, somebody go outside for a eat, and a coffee, and no.
So the coffee hour thing is, please correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I know here is after the funeral, you guys usually have lunch. I want to say, right? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, it's correct. You have the wake, and then you have like the repast. So the
Yeah.
repast is where people get together at a local hall or something. If the grounds or the facility has something you can do that with, you go there, or you go to another place, and there's food and gathering and people to socialize or whatnot. Yeah, they usually call that a repast here.
Yeah. So we do coffee and cookies instead. That's the difference.
Gotcha.
So we're talking now. You add the numbers, and like you have the funeral homes.
Mm-hmm.
No viewings. Viewings not even a thing in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
So
So there's no such thing as a wake or open casket where you view the body. There's no embalming. There's no.
no, δεν έχουν πει σε κηδεία, δεν ανοίγουν να πας να δεις το πτώμα.
Ναι, μπορεί να βάλεις πώς το λένε, με γυαλίτο από πάνω και το βλέπεις.
So they do have the option to
except αν είναι από τρακάρισμα και είναι μεταμορφωμένος.
So there are a couple options. If you die from natural causes, say my mother, God forbid, knock on wood.
Yeah, amen.
And you could put a glass over it and have an open casket burial.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The only exception, it was an accident. Let's say someone got shot in the head. It was
if the body's mutilated or whatever, then it's not.
That's not even an option. But if viewing, that's not even a thing. Put the body up, like go view it, and he says, "See you, dude," and go on, and like thing, or say your last word.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So there's no such thing as that. People typically don't do that kind of viewing, or people come in front of the. No, that's not typically done. Got it. No. Got it. Yeah. Wow.
For me, I don't know the past way. I've asked my son from hospital, funeral, and they fixed it to me. After to the church, and I go to the cemetery. No funeral, nobody coming, no coffee, no this, no that.
Time out.
No.
You need to do a funeral. You mean no viewing. You jumping in gun there, Mom. So in other words, she has her wishes is she just want a viewing. She wants to come from the hospital or wherever she passes to the church into the ground. She's gonna, be buried.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to ask her generally, how does she feel about death? I mean, this is something that, certainly when people go through, your mom's had cancer, you start thinking about your own mortality. And how do you feel about you passing? Are you, I know you're Christians. I know you have your faith is strong. Do you feel hopeful about, you'll be in heaven? I mean, just what is your overall, how are you dealing yourself? I know you went through a lot with your mom, and that's terrible what you have to deal with, but you personally, how are you seeing death? How do you view your own mortality at this point? Peter, if you can summarize that.
Το πρώτο ερώτηση ρωτάει το παιδί είναι πώς νιώθεις όταν σου λέει κάποιος για θάνατο, πώς νιώθεις εσύ τώρα?
Κατά βάθος πονάς μέσα σου, ας πούμε, στενοχωριέσαι. Ναι. Αλλά έτσι είναι γραμμένο. Το άσχημο είναι να μην πηγαίνουν οι γονείς στα παιδιά. Με κατάλαβες?
So she kind of accepted it. Her time's coming. Is in the program. That's pretty much what she's saying. Where it just is, you got a point of birth, a point of this, a point of that. That's part of the program, and she knows it's coming. But one thing she wants to point out to anybody out there is it's okay to have a son or daughter bury their mother or father, but it's bad when a mother or a father has to bury their kids. That's
you never want. I mean, that's the worst thing for a parent. You never want to bury your children. That is like, I can't think of anything more.
Όταν πεθάνεις, εσύ νομίζεις θα πας πάνω με στο Χριστό όλα αυτά.
Βέβαια, εκεί πάνε οι ψυχές πες του. Όλοι οι καθολικοί, ό,τι Εβραίος, ό,τι είναι, εκεί πας. Και από εκεί σε χωρίζουν τη θέση που θα πάρεις. Αν έχεις σκοτώσει, αν έχεις κλέψει, αν έχεις κάνει.
Ο άγγελος, πώς το λένε γάμο το...
Αρχάγγελος Γαβριήλ.
Okay. So in our religion, we believe we all go straight up.
Hmm.
So when we get to the gates, Archangel Gabriel separates us, saying,
Hmm.
you're good, you're cool, you get in. You kill somebody, you're going to hell.
Hmm.
Or this, they said, like, it's a line getting separate. The best way I can
Γι' αυτό
explain it,
έχουμε την εικόνα, θα τη
that
δείξουμε, που είναι
ναι,
από τη μια είναι η κόλαση και από την άλλη είναι ο παράδεισος. Από εδώ είναι οι αγγέλοι και από εδώ είναι ο σατανάς.
Ναι.
Και τους έχει τη φωτιά που τους καίει.
So in church they have it a certain way. Where archangels one side, Gabriel one side, Michael. Is the reason to do that because it's the way they get separated, and that's why the fire is at a certain point. Like if you did evil, let's say you were a mass murderer, for example, you're going to get burned in hell. They send right in the fire, and you go down to hell. Simple as that. No questions about it.
Right.
Oh, 40 days. No eat meat, chicken, this and that. Only the vegetables.
Okay. So when someone dies, that's part of, I guess, a mourning or or fasting that you do for 40 days with no meat or
The 3 days, γιατί τρως το σώμα του ανθρώπου, λένε.
So they do that because, say, you're eating the body of the person who you just buried. So that's the reason behind that.
And again, it's 40 days.
40 days.
40 days, and says so no meat and what else?
No meat, no chicken.
You become a vegan.
Only fish.
A vegan. Okay.
Yeah.
Only fish and vegetables.
Right.
Okay. And the 40 days, εσείς πώς λένε το στάρι εδώ πέρα, αυτό που κάνουν το ψωμί, το αλεύρι.
Wheat.
Have a week and hold it, and strain and dry. The big part. After you have it in different nuts, very, very small carrot.
Yes.
So the wheat, everybody makes it a little different. Her way, she put a little carrot, a little seeds. So everybody has their own way. So that's what you bring to the memorial service. The father has a little, a piece of paper
and fix it
like this big, and he reads the name. Like Ayuthu, Anna, and so on. He prays for the names, and then you separate it. You can put a usually little baggies people bring it, and you eat it as how some people buy shots here goes like in memory of my friend. Whoop, we do the wheat instead, if that makes sense.
Almost.
Yeah, it does.
I fix it the big plate with special sugar and have the cross and the two initial name. My mother's Helen Bastardos, A.V.
So in other words,
flowers, like design.
Yeah.
For the church. After for the church, and downstairs for the church, you have a big patio, and they give it to them coffee, cognac, πώς το λένε τα παξιμαδάκια?
Cookies.
Cookies. And after, you hold it to the somebody, very close people, and stay to eat there.
Right. Yeah.
Me, nobody. And I go to my home, and I come in the godfather, my son, my sister-in-law, and a daughter, and I take it in πώς το λένε, πήραμε απ' έξω, φαγητό.
So you order food from out. Instead of making
and they come delivery.
Right. Wow.
And it is normal.
So
That's it.
With long story short, when she makes this, everybody does it different, but most people have one thing in common: is they always use white sugar on top, and they usually put a cross with their first initials, the little ones. V is for Lazarus Vastado, and EL Eleni Vastado, my grandparents' first and last name. Obviously, it's my And you,
βάζουμε
no,
μέσα.
I explained that baggy part. So after also once a year, το καλοκαίρι όταν πας κάθε Κυριακή είναι κάθε Wednesday που τα λέει τα ονόματα είναι μία φορά το χρόνο αυτό.
Όχι, είναι μερικά Σάββατα. Και...
Αυτό που έγινε μία φορά το χρόνο που το έκανε εσύ κάθε χρόνο. Το έκανε το πρώτο και το δεύτερο, το καλοκαίρι είναι.
Όχι, όχι, είναι μεταξύ χειμώνα και καλοκαίρι.
So in the summer,
και το καλοκαίρι τώρα το
couple times a year, they have a big one that everybody brings their study, the wheat in other words, and does that. But for after 40 days, you do this. Usually you go down, usually ask the church to make some food, stuff like that. Usually you offer coffee or some kind of alcohol, like a little shot you drink with cookies.
Yeah, right.
Αυτά τα που λες εσύ είναι γιατί διαβάζονται όλα τα πεθαμένα μας.
So then close family usually goes out somewhere to eat or something like that. My mother didn't have anybody, says, I'm not spending fucking money in cooking. Fuck that shit, she goes. She had my godfather. Ποιος άλλος ήταν?
Ποιος?
Ο Ρενός και ποιος άλλος?
Η θιά σου είναι εκεί.
My aunt, from my mom's side, her and my cousin. They just ordered some food. Σουβλάκια μπάικερες.
Όχι, κοτόπουλο πήρα.
She ordered some chicken and roasted chicken with some salad. That's what I said, ma. And so small things like that. She didn't want to go crazy because what's the point? Like everybody who said it was there for my mom and it. You want to talk?
Fresh fries.
She's getting a kick out of this, by the way. And as much as I'm not a fan of this conversation, but she's getting a kick out of it. But she didn't want to spend the money because when my grandma was alive, for example, you guys were there. But because gimme. Now she's
not there.
In the ground.
Wow. Yeah.
Nothing. Like I had some words when I went to Greece. I'm not gonna lie. Like I exchanged some words with some people, and some of them I was young and a hothead, and so I'm not very proud of what I said. But the words were said. I should have handled myself better as a man,
sure,
but I didn't.
Right.
But with my emotions were out of control at that point because that was my grandmother. I said what I said. I don't take anything back.
Right.
Maybe I should have did a little differently. I'll give them that. But
είχε τα λεπτάκια για την κηδεία της.
And everything. My grandma would put money away for her funeral. It's like a life insurance kind of thing. But έχουν life insurance στην Ελλάδα.
Έχουν, αλλά δεν είχε τέτοιο πράγμα.
My grandma never.
Από το social security που έπαιρνε, επλήρωνε όλα τα μπίλια τα αυτά και τα υπόλοιπα τα βάζε μέσα σε ένα φάκελο.
So how she did it?
Και πήγαινε στην τράπεζα.
They have life insurance in Greece, but my grandmother didn't do that. What she did instead was every time she got paid her retirement, she paid her bills, food, whatever. So let's say she had $1,000 left over. She maybe say 2,000, argument's sake, right? A chunk of it, let's say 500 per check, would go for her burial. So she had a good amount of money left over when the time comes, just in case that day came. And it was like a life insurance thing here instead. There's a little different talk of it, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's an incredible story. Thank you, Anna, for sharing. And again, I just feel that you had to go through that. And, they say sometimes you don't know until the tough times come who your true friends and family are. And unfortunately, you had to have that realization with that. So now when you die, do you want to be buried here or return to Greece? Is that part of your desire to, where would you like to stay?
Here. Γιατί μπορείς εσύ να έρθεις κάτω να με ξεθάβεις και να με κάνεις όλα αυτά.
So she knows mentally I'm not going to be able to go through the process, get her out of the ground, checking her bones out, yada, yada. And she's right. I'm not going to die. She knows her son. She knows what kind of hardhead I can be, and knows how emotional I can be. I am a very emotional person. That's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But that is too much for me to bear. And she's trying to at least take that out of the equation, and I respect that, to be honest with you.
Right.
And the second is when I want to visit my mother, I don't have to get on a plane, pay $1,500 to fly across the world to put a set of flowers at my mom. I can
No,
just
yeah, I totally get that. It seems to be something that's changing. I think with younger generations, but certainly for those I know who are of an immigrant background. If you're born and raised in a certain country, your desire is to be buried in your ancestral home. I think that that's something that for a lot of those people, they have that connection to the country that they came from. But if you've been in America for most of your life, if you were born here or what have you, then I think a lot of that sentiment tends to go away as generations get established here. So I could certainly understand why people desire that, but certainly given like I said, the unfortunate experience that your mom had to deal with in dealing with the so-called friends and family members, I could certainly understand wanting to do that, as well as sparing you of the grief of having to go through the process that's in that a lot of people in Greece have to go through. So I just think about just the mental health of individuals in Greece when they have to go through this experience. Are there the services and the support there to help people through that process if they haven't seen the bones and everything? Like, are they holding? Is the support service, whether it be through the funeral home or through psychiatrists or psychologists, people there to really support these people in the process?
Όσο μεγαλώνουν, όλοι που έχουν από άλλη χώρα θέλουν να θαυτούν στη χώρα του. Εσύ είσαι έξυπνη που δεν θέλει να το κάνεις αυτό. Δεύτερο, όταν βλέπουν τα κόλλα, μπορεί να μιλήσει σε γιατρό, υπάρχει να μιλήσει στον παπά. Τι γίνεται μετά, μιλάς σε κάποιον ή έτσι?
Για πότε?
Όταν βγάζεις τα κόκαλα και τα δεις.
Είναι ο παπάς και ψέλνει.
Ναι,
όλα.
Αλλά θα σου μιλήσει μετά. Αλλά
ναι, έρχεται στο σπίτι, κάθεται, πίνουμε καφέ, κουβεντιάζουμε, ναι. Σου λέει κουράγιο, όλοι εκεί θα πάμε, άλλοι φεύγουν νέοι, άλλοι φεύγουν μεγάλοι. Μόνο να μην υποφέρεις, σου λέει, να το κάνει ο Θεός, να μην έχεις προβλήματα όπως έχω εγώ τον καρκίνο. Δηλαδή να πεθάνεις με χωρίς πόνους, να πας όπως ο παππούς, η γιαγιά.
So when they open the casket and all that stuff, is it usually a priest there reading a prayer? After that part is done, the priest usually hangs out with you a little bit, go have coffee. You might chit chat, bullshit about something, but he will talk about other things too. Make sure you're okay and all that stuff. So on. So she's asking anything else you want to know before she goes?
Nah. This has been a great thank you for sharing again your personal story. And thank you for the again, the cultural exchange. I did not know that that's what happens in Greece, or those rituals that happens in Greece. So again, it definitely gives you a different perspective being in America, to see how different things are done. But I am happy to hear that you in some ways are ready to meet death when it comes. You understand the cycle of life, and you're ready to meet your maker whenever that time comes. But again, we don't want that to come anytime soon. We hope that you're here for many, many years, and that your health is restored, and that you can still annoy Peter and make sure that he stays straight. So
όταν πεθάνει να δεις το Θεό όλα αυτά, δεν φοβάσαι.
Αφού είναι το κανονικό.
It's part of life, she says. Nothing she can do to change it. She can't stop it.
Absolutely.
Κάτι θέλω να πω τώρα.
She just wants to say one last thing really fast.
Sure.
Think she forgot.
Τώρα οι περισσότεροι, πες του, δεν χρησιμοποιούν funeral.
Πώς το κάνουνε?
Όπως το κάνεις εσύ εμένα, ναι. Γιατί είναι πολλά τα λεπτά να πάρουν τον τάφο ακριβό, να έχουν και funeral.
Χωρίς και άλλο θα μου πεις, δεν κάνουν το funeral, είναι στην εκκλησία αυτό.
Το funeral, μανούλα μου, περίμενε 2 λεπτά. Όπως τους κρατάνε 5 και 6 μέρες εδώ, alright, δεν το κάνουν τώρα πια όλοι. Και οι Έλληνες και όλοι το έχουν σταματήσει, γιατί είναι πολλά τα λεπτά.
So, in other words, you're saying in Greece, they don't keep the body like 5-6 days of you and all that stuff. Like I said, we don't do it. they're even skipping the part like keeping she dies, let's say on a Monday, bury her on a Friday. They try to get it done as fast as possible because it's cheap. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's happening in a lot of. I was going to share that in our next segment. That how some different countries and rituals, how they also want to bury the body fast.
It's a waste of money.
Γιατί αν κάποιος έχει οικογένεια και έχει να σπουδάσει παιδιά και να κάνει και να θέλει 30 χιλιάδες με 40 να κάνει κηδεία εδώ πέρα, για όνομα του Θεού.
Τι πεις, πριν φύγεις?
Όχι, πες το εσύ.
Πες ένα δύο.
Good night.
Good night. Great seeing you again. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
Say hello to your wife.
I will. Thank you so much.
Good night, sweetheart.
Let me get her out of here really fast, and I'll be right back. Three minutes.
You got it. No problem. No problem. So again, thank you, Anna, once again for sharing. Again, we think, we have issues in this world. I mean, one of the things that we wanted to talk about on the gray area is, again, to find that common ground amongst cultures. And you go around the world, and a lot of times you say people are going to be people. People are going to be fickle. People are going to be only interested in themselves. And, so for a woman who gave so much to her family when they were in Greece, and now that person dies, and because you don't bring gifts and money home, they forget about you. So that's humanity. A lot of people here experience things. People get funny at funerals, as we oftentimes say here, and that's just another example of that. But still, good to have Miss Anna with us. Good to know that she is, has the proper perspective. And again, but I hope that, again, she sticks around for a while to keep bugging Peter and just being a pain in his neck, certainly because I think he needs it. But with that, Brother David, certainly our moderator and does all the things in the background for us. Just want to bring you up for a minute. Just want to kind of get your perspective. So again, I learned a lot in that segment about Greece. I had no idea about, people being on the casket for a limited amount of time and whatnot. And, so that'd be a head trip. I mean, if you have to open up a casket within 3 to 5 years to see the bones of the departed and what that can do to you psychologically. But I wanted to kind of get from an African perspective or a Nigerian perspective or from a Yoruba perspective, how death is handled in Nigeria from your experience. I know you certainly come from a Christian background, and I know there's, obviously there's Islamic rituals. In fact, I was just looking up some of the rituals when it comes to Islamic burials. So I know them. They're also, as you were saying, Peter, the idea is to bury the body as fast as possible. No long drawn out time with the body. The body is typically, if you can't live bury the body's in a wooden box. So there is no casket, there is no luxury package. You just want to get the body in the casket as fast as possible. There's also certain rituals when it comes to women. Now, again, this varies as Islam is diverse, just as Christianity is diverse. There's differences in terms of how some people look at it, but typically the idea is women are not allowed at the burial ritual. So you're allowed at the quote unquote funeral. You can be there for the funeral, but then taking the body to be buried is something that's oftentimes shunned upon by certain aspects of Islam. Different Islamic scholars had different views on it. I was just watching some videos prior to the show in terms of how do people feel about it, because again, the emotions of it, women get emotional at these things, and it kind of disrupts sometimes the procession, if you will, if the woman breaks down at that point. So women are typically not. In fact, I got a friend of mine I used to work with. His brother was a Muslim, and he said also that women were not allowed at the burial. So I know, again, different cultures treat the subject of death differently. You also talked about the mourning rituals. I know I was my friends of mine from India, since I work in the IT field, I know there is a mourning period. Usually it's 2 weeks. Sometimes that involves head shaving for that 2-week period while you're in mourning. Especially if you're a son, you shave. Yes, you have to shave your head grooming for that time as a show of your mourning. So I know in a lot of Hindu culture that is there. That I've been to a Hindu funeral, if you call it, where there's a lot of ritual. There's a lot of things that they put in the casket. So the body's in the casket, and they're putting like herbs and different symbols and fragrances and just different things in as part of ceremony. So it's pretty elaborate. The way they do it again in certain Hindu cultures as well. So I recognize that again everybody treats it differently, but certainly from an African, Nigerian, Yoruba perspective, and that's another one of those shows where I would love to have Ekene on because he's sort of like a more tribalist. So, but David, as much as you understand as far as burial rituals for those in Nigeria and how those might differ from those in America, anything you want to share on that? I just want to give you the
And I'm
floor
glad you asked
for a few
that
minutes.
question because while you were talking about it just now, I know in the back of my head it's a ritual that lasts for 7 days, but I didn't know the exact definition within tap because many times I'm not gonna lie, when I was a little kid, I had to be afraid of it because the ritual that we have in Yoruba tribe is not like the Christian aspect, but it's more of a traditional aspect. So
Mm,
when I scroll down to here, it says according to the Yoruba tradition, the burial rite involves 7 days of ritual called Etutu to
mm,
suitably send the deceased spirit to its ancestral realm, right?
mm,
But when you look up here, it's broken down in different month process. I'll
mm,
read. The Yoruba ethnic group of Nigeria have many burial traditions that depend on the age, circumstance of the death, and the social status of the deceased. When they mention
mm,
the social status, now technically it will only last for 7 days, right?
mm.
If it was a traditional ruler like a chief or a king, it could last more than 7 days.
Right.
It could be almost 2 weeks, and the process is hectic. Like for example, preparation. The body will be washed and will be scrubbed with camwood dye and placed on plantain leaves. If the deceased is a woman, her hair is plaited. If it's a man, the man's hair is either shaved or combed.
Mm,
Right? That is the process. Now, the people
mm,
who does the process are people who are traditionally trained in that process. That is one of the aspect of it.
mm,
The methods, right? Relatives spread news of the dead. The methods are given to the deceased to deliver to their ancestors. Now, the traditional way to go about it is like a ceremony. Sometimes you have these things or the masquerade. I'm sure you have seen the video on YouTube. They have these masquerade with a twitch that we're
mm,
beating people. That to symbolize the past in some kind of way. Now, people know the crowd partaking into it. It's kind of like watch some observe someone get chased by a bus or part of the tradition.
mm,
Now, the ritual, as I say, depending on the status of the decrease of the deceased, sorry, there may be there may be drumming, singing,
mm,
dancing, firing of the musical organ, pouring or libatation. The oldest daughter of the deceased, called Ada, may also take part in the Inu Onu Aqua rite. I believe that's based on the Akwa Ibom culture as well. That's another part of your body to follow, where she
mm,
eat the deceased's favorite meal in silence for a day to ensure they have access to the nutrition in the afterlife.
mm,
That is one part of the Yoruba tribe. That another part is something simply different, but the drumming, singing, dancing, firing of the musical organ is mostly common among the Yoruba tribe. That could
mm.
last for maybe a day or two.
Mm.
That's what goes on. The burial.
Oh.
The firstborn son of the deceased may pour water on the father's corpse. You
Mm,
know how in America they'll get the children to come over to drop the sand, right,
mm.
on the casket.
Yeah.
The firstborn son is part of a rite that passes, right? Part of the
Mm.
also for the
Right.
deceased. He has to pour water. So they'll bring a bowl. The water, I don't know if the water is prepared or the water has been purified, depending on the nature of it. They'll have the
Mm,
first son dip his hand, either in one hand or you have two hands. You'll pour water on the sometimes the cat, sometimes the body be must be wrapped up. It depends on the process. that will be done. And like I said, when I say it takes 7 days, it's no jokes.
Hmm.
Food be
Right.
cooked up, there'll be a ceremony. A lot of people from family member from far away will come to the ceremony. Now, if the person is well known, man, you talk about 2 to 5,000 people popping up
Hmm.
to the ceremony, and it's no joke.
Right.
So, come to the Yoruba be a small tradition. It's not something simple.
Hmm.
Now, I was listening to Peter talk about how people travel from outside the country had to bring gifts. Hate to say it, it's also applied to us as well.
Wow.
It's
Now,
crazy.
does it go to the extreme of if you come without the gifts that people won't show? Because that I'm still kind of wrapping my head around that one,
Um,
especially if you knew this person who did nothing but good by your community or whatever all that time, and just in the just the cost and expense to get them
I
there, you
think
come empty handed. Is that they take that as insult to the degree that they won't show?
how would I say that happened after the burial because I'll give insight to my mom burial. Mom burial was done by my mom church, which is most of the white garment church,
Mm-hmm.
and they go to so many their own tradition on how to process the burial. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, when that's being done, they have to pray over the casket. I don't know how they don't. I think they do that like what, like 5 to 7 prayers when the
Mm-hmm.
people in the middle home waiting on the. And I was like, I was in my head. I was like, man, these traditions take too long. It's not like American
Mm-hmm.
tradition. Damn.
Yeah.
But since my mom is a Nigerian and she part of a Nigerian church, they follow their ritual to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
When that was done, we come back to the church, have some kind of like a celebration.
Mm-hmm.
But it's right then and there, you, the people will come to celebrate with the family of the deceased. They have to pay their homage, like give gifts. Sometimes the gift coming to when the children, let's say the children of the deceased dancing through the music, they spray
Mm-hmm.
the money on the children's head to bless them, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that did happen with me and my sibling. We were dancing. By me, I'm not gonna lie, I had some friction with my sibling. It was
Mm-hmm.
friction long before that.
Mm-hmm.
But being
Yeah.
being the eldest at that time, I had to play my part and not show no sign of friction. So I had to put on a smile. And even on the back of my head, I'm like, I hate these people right here. I don't want to be around. But at the same time, I had to fix my face. I had to be like, you know what? It is what it is. This is what it's, if it's my mom, it would be another. Let me not get too worked up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the funny thing about it, the whole ceremony, I wasn't in tears. I was in tears when I saw my mom pass away when I
Mm-hmm.
was working at that time. When my brother, no, my sister called me, and I saw the live footage of my mom in the bed, and she gave up. It did hurt me at that moment. So
Mm-hmm.
that moment was very, very critical because I'm not gonna lie, me and my mom were not seeing eye to eye for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I know you've shared that in the past. Yes.
And watching my mom when I was working, sitting down like this, looking at the screen, all kind of emotion came up on me. It was like I don't like to end thing on a bad note. Just like my
Sure.
father, I was trying to make amends with my father a decade ago before he passed
Mm.
away.
Right.
When he passed away, nobody told me how he passed away. So it happened with my mom. Well, I watched my mom in the hospital. She was in Texas. Baby, you don't know about that part. She died in the hospital in Texas. They transferred her body here. So when I saw her body during the funeral home, and even after the burial, I did not break down in tears, which is crazy. I thought I'd be emotional about what my younger brother was more emotional because he was more closer to my mom than I was. I was more extreme from everybody.
Right.
But as I watched people trying to celebrate my mom and they did the tradition, it kind of like I was in my thought too much, but at the same time, I was trying to keep myself not showing that face that I didn't want to be there. But following the tradition, sometimes it could be dragging. You wanted it would be done and over, but you could not get done over because some church add an extra tradition. You got to come back after 30 days. You want to do some prayer, but in the African tradition, it either lasts for 7 days or lasts to 14 days or more, depending, like they say, the social status of that person.
Correct. Right.
So when it comes to Yoruba culture, it could be dragon. Igbo, which is Ekene tribe, it could be similar or it could be longer, depending on how they conduct their funeral. So
Mhm.
when it comes to African culture dealing with death, it's very, very significant. It's very, very, it's somewhat precise, but I remember in Nigeria, there's a family plot that given to the family long ago, where they bury all their descendant.
Mhm.
There was the question of taking my mom back to Nigeria, but the cost is ridiculous. You're talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna spend like about maybe $10,000 to $25,000 to
Just about the transport. Yeah.
transport the body from the US all the way to Nigeria, and that is way too much money.
Right. Now,
So
similar
that's
to Peter, is in terms of the type of casket, is there, because I know Peter said earlier, transport might have to be in a metal casket and then transferred over to a wood. Is there a certain way the body needs to be transported if someone chooses that option? Would you
Peter.
know? No, I'm asking you, David. I know Peter already talked about it. So right, like I know,
Oh,
especially with the Orthodox Church, there's a way that the body has to be transported. So you have a metal casket, but ultimately from that metal casket, you're put into a wooden casket. That's like the tradition. So I'm saying, is there something similar in Yoruba Nigerian culture where the casket, or what the person is buried in, ultimately does that matter to the extent? Also, keeping in mind the religious aspect of it.
that is a very, very, very great question, because I had to look back and think about it on the traditional aspect of it. I always know that the cat has always been made by wood, but it's carved by the carpenter of that particular village who is very familiar with the
Mm,
tribe. So they make a unique type of casket for that. Now, for the Christian, it's kind of very dependent on the people who are preparing the funeral. Either it's wood or it's metal or it's a mixture of both. But I do recall
mhm.
the traditional side of things, it's actually wood, but that cat will be made, let's say, about 5 days before the burial ceremony, because they will have to meet the carpenter, give it the mantra how they want the cat to be, and
Mhm.
he and his team will put it to work.
Mhm.
Now, if it's someone of a royalty, then you can tell it will be no fancy wood. That wood will be nice part that will have a certain decor to it as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I can
So
imagine that.
it does
Right.
that. So it's mostly wood I can recall for traditional part of it. But
Right.
on the Christian side, it's very based on the people who preparing it for the individual. Either it's all
Gotcha.
wood or mixed with wood and metal. It all depends.
Gotcha. Peter, did you have any questions for David? And again, thank you for sharing. And again, I know certainly some of the stuff cuts fairly recent for you. So I know
Yeah,
those
yeah.
gaps may not still be, you're still healing from that. So again, I think it's
No,
brave of you to,
it's still there.
yeah,
It's still there. Just that it is
yeah.
open a lot of thoughts. Like I said, after the funeral, I was lost in my thoughts for weeks upon months. So it kind of like
Mm-hmm.
some of the thought to flood into my head afterwards. So I had to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of like when you put to be the oldest son and you deal with a dad, you lose both parents. And plus from an African perspective, it kind of like two factors happen. Either it lifts the burden off the shoulder, or it add an extra burden depending on the nature of your position.
Right.
So the African family is not simple to deal with that, depending on what is left behind.
Right.
To me, I
Right.
felt like the burden lifted, because I felt like whatever would hold me down for several years, whether restriction, I felt like it was off my chest. So
Right.
I'm clear from any responsibility. I'm clear for any shenanigan, because I felt like too much had been planted on my shoulder for a long period of time. So when she
Right.
was gone, it kind of like I'm done.
Yeah.
So my head
And and
clean.
and that's a very real thing for a lot of people. I know Peter and I, we talked about that a little bit on the last show. And again, especially when you have parents who are at odds with their children. I even made a post on my Facebook today, just saluting the Father's Day. First of all, happy Father's Day to all the guys that are out there who are who are doing what they need to do. And I understand that certainly parent and children relationships can be complicated. And a lot of times things left unsaid at funerals or at before death, there was no reconciliation. And for a lot of people, there is a feeling of relief, that burden's lifted. And those are real things that we, rather than, judging someone saying, oh, you shouldn't be thinking about that way about your parents or whatever. Look, I mean, not everybody had it easy. And so, we have to deal oftentimes with things unrepaired, things undone. And people are left in these states. So, again, people may find themselves in a lot of different states when it comes to their parents. Not everyone thinks the same way. And we need to be open about that, having that conversation, and giving people the freedom and the forum to express themselves, to help them to get over some of that dysfunction that kept parents away from their children for so long. So I think those are things that we may tackle that in a whole nother show. But Peter, did you have any questions for David? I didn't want to keep him on too long. 'Cause I know he does a lot for us in the background. But again, thank you for sharing. But Peter, if you had a question for David before we let him go.
Yeah, this is a question for David, but I want to follow up into continue to the next part of our show. David, now with I guess please correct me if I'm wrong. The funeral dance, is that similar to what Samoans do, or is it different?
No, Samoan is more like a warrior
Mm-hmm.
ceremony that which I grasp and understand, because that warrior dance is done in funeral, it's done to celebration, it's done in graduate. It's like a rite to
You
pass.
talking about like the Haka dance, dance that they do?
Yeah, Haka dance. I looked into it for a while, and I didn't. It was very unique, but to the Yoruba, it's done based on Yoruba music. It's done by a Yoruba musician who understands the culture dynamic of the funeral. So song will be sang. It had to relate to the family. Sometimes he may be saying shouting of praise to the family or mention the family tree. There's so many aspects I'm missing to it, because I remember watching past ceremony after a funeral. Do you have a musician who be singing for the entire family, but we're thinking for the deceased family, they would start mentioning pray to the deceased, then hope, and like almost like he's singing a prayer that those who are left behind, either the widow, the children, would take up the mantle and not let that particular family go down the path. Now, my mom, ceremony part, I don't say it that happened, but it was almost like hoping that one of us will lead the family name. But in the back of my mind, I already know that this will be the end, because I've been estranged from my family for so long. So I ready to cut my tide completely
Yeah.
because of the mental abuse, mental anger I had to go through for decades. So it kind of like, I felt like the burden is lifted, but another crossroad came about as the father and the grandfather. I'm trying to figure out how would I break it down to my kid. Would my kid be able to see my side of the family, or they'll be estranged from my side of the family? Because it's not simple. I think this is more difficult for someone who's an immigrant, especially from Africa, where you have a huge culture
Yeah.
tradition. Then when something like this happens, you start to question yourself, what is the next step? Are you going to allow your kid to embrace your side of the culture, even though you're being estranged from it, or you might want to just turn a blind eye and say we're going to go take a different path? It's not simple, because I've been thinking about that for months throughout last year after my mom passed away. So it's kind of like it's heavy on me,
Yeah.
but I don't want to sound heartless about it, because I'm a person. I sometimes don't care for myself. I care for those who I have responsibility over. So kind of like it's an ongoing burden. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate around it, because it's not easy. I
Yeah.
don't want my kid not to know their culture, but at the same time, kind of like how would I address this issue without put them in an awkward position?
Hmm.
Because I was put in that place when I was a kid, and I didn't like that feeling. It was a heavy, heavy burden. So
Yeah.
I'm concerned. I don't want to put my on my kids as well because mm, I don't know.
David, let
It's
me ask this question: mentally, how were you when you got the call that she passed?
mentally I was taken off guard at first. At first, I didn't want to believe that I need confirmation until they put me on a video call and show my mom on the. Give me a minute.
Yeah. Take your time, bro. Like I said, we don't want to cut too deep.
When
If it's too much
I
for you,
know
let us
it
know.
does. When they show my mom on a video call in the bed in the hospital in Dallas, Texas, on a ventilator, like she would not open her eye.
Hmm.
And my two sisters, my brother were there. Because I didn't know that she went there the weekend before, and there's a lot of information that was thrown to me at that time. I was not in the right mind. Then when I heard that she was dying from cancer, they just found out that weekend, but she knew about it for more than a year. So too many things would came to my head. Why
Hmm.
you didn't let me know? Why you hiding it from? What would be behind it?
Hmm.
Are you afraid of what I may think about? Because I've been known of the person they keep so much information from me because I would know what it's attached to. I know who to point finger to. But that moment, it did not help me because I was working. It was like a huge shock, which is one. And to watch my mom in the bed dying, it kind of like really hurt me
Hmm.
because at first I didn't get a chance to talk to her and trying to mend.
Yeah.
I don't like to be in on a negative with anybody before that. It kind of like it's an irky feeling, but it did hurt. That yet with my mother. I'm not gonna lie, she's my mom. I cannot replace my mom, but the way felt, it felt totally unfair. Because I was not
Hmm.
able to. Even though I tried several times before that happened, I was trying to make amends. It was not working. I was somewhat able to do that with my father, but not with my mom. So when I saw her on the bed, it kind of like I wanted to fly out there, but I couldn't. Then less
Yeah.
than an hour, my brother gave me the text and told me that she passed away. I just said I was a mental wreck. The amount
Yeah.
of tears came out of my face. I was mixed with rage, anger, bitterness. So I wanted to punch a huge hole in my wall, but I couldn't. There was so much going on, I could not contain it. So I
Hmm.
wasn't myself. So my mind was just all over the place. I just
Hmm.
do my job. I tell them I would take a week off. I need to get my mind together. Let them know what happened.
Hmm.
So they let me take a week off from work because the way it hit me, I I don't want to be outside because I know if I'm outside during that time when I was thinking that way, I know the kind of individual I am. I'm more of a danger to the public than I am to myself when I have that thought going to my head. So I had to stay home
Yeah.
throughout the week. I did not want to go nowhere. I don't want to be outside. I don't want to be bothered. I know
Hmm.
I live in Brooklyn, New York. There are people who could be out there stupid and knowing myself, it only take one small trigger and I could be a monster. So I just stayed home, just locked myself in my thought. It threw me off in many ways. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna fly out there now. Like they already planned to bring the body over here. So the whole arrangement, the process, I went to the funeral home, doing the whole funeral to so my mom's body. I looked at her in the body and I could just like, wow. There's so much I wanted to say, but I couldn't say right then and there. Then I'm not gonna lie, during the service, you know how I now understand how black people feel when people go to the funeral home service and about to see, and you got people gaslighting the
Hmm.
individual.
Yeah.
The same thing happened in mine. There was so much gaslighting to the point whereby I was like, why am I here? My daughter
Hmm.
caught on to the gaslighting,
Hmm.
and she almost brought it out. My wife told kind of like tap her, like, shh. I
Hmm.
mean, I was like, there's no point in tapping because I was feeling the same way, but like, I'm not gonna lie, that was the worst funeral experience I had in my life. It's just, I felt like I was not there, even though I was there. So it kind of like, why me?
Yeah. 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 There definitely seems like there's still there's still a healing process that's going on, and we may want to do certainly in an upcoming show. So we've talked about um end of life care for parents. Then this show we're dealing with the topic of death, the various aspects of death. But then there's going to be another topic that comes after this. Now we don't have to do it, in current weeks. I think we've been pretty heavy the last couple of weeks, so we might want to come back and circle around on this. But the grieving process after death, picking up the pieces, what that
Oh,
process is
okay.
like for a lot of different people. So
I think that's the worst part
yeah,
because when my grandmother passed,
hmm
that was the worst feeling in the world for me.
yeah,
That hit home more than anything because to this day, I don't really talk about this. I know CQ is watching. He's gonna yell at me probably. He should know this. You're gonna yell at me. Dave's gonna yell at me at this. To this day, 20 years later, I still blame myself.
mm.
It's something that always haunts me because I panicked the day she passed.
hmm
That's because me and my father got in an argument that day. Stupid argument over money, like always.
hmm
Sorry, hang on.
hmm Take your time, brother.
And I threw my watch. It was a plastic watch. Nothing. Nobody got hurt or anything like that. My grandma goes, I'm going to lay down. All of a sudden, my father and my mother yell at me, call 911 now. We had a friend who used to rent our apartment downstairs, our studio apartment.
Mm.
I was yelling at him like, dude, I don't know what to do. He ended up calling 911. They were working on her and at my house for over an hour. I remember sitting in my house for 2 hours straight, figuring out what the hell was going on.
hmm
Then my father pulls me in the room and says, she's gone. To this day, I still feel that guilt.
That you feel you didn't make the call had you responded in the moment, that those precious minutes or seconds you feel that she possibly could have been resuscitated in that time.
She didn't pass in the house. She passed on the way to the ambulance.
Right.
She was going. She was dying in. She was not dying in the house, but she was in the process of dying.
Right. But you're still talking about, again, it's a timing. Had you responded at the time, again, that time lost, more time to work on her, and would have been I'm just gonna, and again, I didn't intend for the show to get this deep or whatever, but I think for both of you guys, man, those are burdens that you don't need to carry. All right, I'll just put that out there. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a preacher. I'm not any of those things. But for you guys to walk around with those burdens, there's no need for that. You're human beings. We talked about earlier in the show that death is certainly a part of life. We don't know when our time is. When our time comes, it comes. And to beat ourselves up thinking about what could have been done or words that could have been said, certainly you can do the work in terms of working it out in your own mind, getting the peace of mind for you to be whole. I would certainly encourage both of you, certainly, if therapy is an option for you guys to get that, but the burdens that you guys are still carrying, are things that you do not need to need to. All right.
I have
And
seen
again,
therapists.
yeah. It's
Still have-
I'm not saying it's an easy process, but that is that is something that, you know, you continue to carry that weight. It's gonna it's gonna affect the rest of your life. And think about not only for your life, the people that are dependent on you, David, your children, and your children's children, to be carrying that weight that you have, that unreconciled situation with your parents, or you grooming, you know, in the relationships, the future relationships that you're gonna have. You know, these are things that, you know, really there's no need to carry them, brothers. I mean, you know, I like I said, I might be talking out of pocket here. Again, I wish Dr. Nakumbe was here. I wish he could add more to this, but
Mr. Paul Bennett, I would say that you're not talking out of pocket. You're correct, because after that funeral, it kind of like made me to make some drastic decisions. Because remember, I told you I was estranged from my family. I was estranged from my sibling. The first thing I did, I cut off my brother for good. I don't talk to him no more. The second thing I did afterward was when I was trying to see how my two sisters were, my two younger sisters. The moment I know they were kind of like gaslighting me, making stuff up that I already clearly remember, I cut them off altogether. So I kind of like detached myself from my sibling straight, because I've been dealing with something for many decades whereby I got lied upon. I got blamed for things that's not my fault. Situation that happened, I remember clear like it was yet. I can pinpoint every single detail. I didn't like the fact that people were consider my blood to gaslight me, think I'm stupid or something. So when I saw that was going on, and there was no change in me, I made in my mind, this family is long done. So it sucks that I disconnect myself from my siblings, but it bothered me more because, for one, I got a daughter who loves her aunt. I don't talk to her aunt with all my sister. I am beyond done with them. But I don't mind getting on my sister number to my daughter anytime you want to call them. What I know is they don't call to check on her, which sucks. I think when I say it sucks, it really sucks. Then you got a brother who's a so-called minister who don't mind gaslighting you just because of it. It kind of like, I don't try to carry this burden, but even though I'm trying to distance myself from the burden, there's no way I can distance, because it creates unnecessary path where I have to figure out how I'm going to deal with this.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I get what you're coming from. Just
yeah.
man,
But this is still about life, gentlemen. I mean, the topic of the show is dealing with death and the modalities of death, how different cultures deal with death, the ceremonies, the rituals, the process, what you think about afterlife, all those things. But at the end of it all, it's still an example about life. Because again, it's just as much, if not more, about the people who still are living than those who passed on. Those who passed on, again, whatever your religious affiliation is, or how you think about the afterlife, or whatever, if you go reincarnated as a donkey, or whatever your belief is, I mean, those things are not the burden of those who die. But it's always the burden of those who still have to live on. That have to deal with a lot of these issues.
The better question for some of us out there, like myself and David, is how do you cope with it? How do you deal with it?
Coping, yeah.
Sometimes it's hard. I'll give you part of the story my mother is sharing right now. During her funeral, my Uncle P was next to her. Even, me and him didn't have a great relationship. Me and my Uncle Nick don't have a good relationship. Both of them have passed. He didn't even step foot in the goddamn fucking church. He sat at the door. 3 people had to hold me back when I went to Greece last time. Because I was going to strangle him. Why I was going to strangle him? Not only for that. He came up to me when I was a kid. He said, "Why didn't you talk to me, dude?" I go, "I don't. You don't talk to my mom. I was kid. I didn't know anything better. I wasn't only 9."
Mhm.
He goes, "That's not like your mother. You're adopted." I carried that burden for years. To one that we blow up and we'll find out. My mom goes, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, if I could pull my pants down and show you the scar, I would. So,
So he said you were adopted just to gaslight you, just to.
oh God, yeah.
Man.
How do you recover from something's hard to recover? That is why I bring that story up.
Yeah.
Like me saying it's my fault, and I said, "Oh, I've been blaming myself." She passed away in 2004. All these years, I said, I'm blaming myself.
Yeah.
And it's in November, around close to my birthday. So people say, "Man, let's go out have drinks." Why? It's this. I get you. We have to keep moving on. My buddy Wolfie, when he passed, obviously I had nothing to do with that. Yeah, I lost my temper at his funeral because of comments his ex-wife made. Then I'm glad he's dead. To this day, Memorial Day. If you remember, I almost choked up on Memorial Day, our episode that day, because I miss the motherfucker.
Yeah.
When I do visit his graveside, one thing I always bring him is a bottle of Jameson, and I pour it. He's an Irish motherfucker, dude. What can I fucking say? That was his favorite drink.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's the tradition he had in his family. I remember when he used to, he's in his half his generation's families half military guys.
Yeah.
And I remember when he visited his grandfather's, some favorite whiskey over.
I hear you.
The things about coping. People ask me always, and you asked me this before, why do you get so many tattoos? They're my scars. When something happened in my life dramatically, I get a tattoo always. Show you this one. This is my grandma's and my grandpa's tattoo. That's how she raised me, dude.
Yeah, I know. I know you shared from the very first episode. Yeah.
It's like losing a mother.
Yeah. Yeah, and to go through that is
yeah. If this hurts as much, losing your grandmother. I know when she's gonna go. I have not come to terms with it. I'm not gonna come to terms with it. People have yelled at me. Therapists have screamed at me. I have seen 10 different therapists about it. I'm never gonna come to terms with it. Even the day it happens, I'm not gonna come to terms with it.
Right.
Most people like yourself have brothers and sisters. I have nobody.
Yeah.
No cousins, nobody.
But it's interesting you say that, because we have David who has brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And it's just as if he doesn't have any. So again, at the end of the day, gentlemen, it's ultimately about you have to move on. You have to live your life, because you can't depend on friends. You can't depend on family. A lot of times those who are closest to you, like I said earlier, people get funny at funerals. In the Black American culture, we always talk about the family that you meet at the funeral. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't know how often that happens in Nigerian culture, but we talk about the family that you meet there. Those step siblings that you meet at your daddy's funeral or whatever that you never even knew. So that's a.
I don't know why you mentioned that word step, because I can remember my recollection. There are more than a couple of step kids my father had before he passed away. And I'm not going to see that. I'm not going to know all of them. I know the one out here in the U.S.
Right.
The one in Nigeria, I will never get a clue to it. That made it bad from my father's side. Now, from my mom's side, I already know off the back, technically speaking, I'm not my mom's oldest child, as she claims. I had an older sister that she kept that secret from me, but I found out who she was a long time. But when I try and get information to my sibling, they think I'm just making shit up. So it's kind of like I'm in a family that like to take certain secrets to the grave, and they don't have to be honest among themselves. So, like I said, since she passed away, there's so much things. Who can I rely on? I disconnect myself from my blood brother. I disconnected from my two blood sister. I have a other older blood sister, but she was apologizing to me on the funeral day, and I looked her in the face like the first thing came to my mind, you fake ass.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say I was pissed, I did an excellent job hiding that anger during the ceremony after the funeral. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like you just said, I have no legit trust with my family.
Mm-hmm.
It is something I was trying to do that 2 decades ago. I was thinking of changing my last name just to
Mm-hmm.
disconnect myself. That was a thought of mine 2 decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's the honest truth.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to carry the last name, to be honest with you. 'Cause I felt
Mm-hmm.
my last name was a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Could have too many mental and emotional scar I had to carry for more than 4 decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one of the reason why I took mixed martial arts to help me to get total control of the unfiltered rage I had. That's why I say I'm like a monster.
Mm-hmm.
I keep to myself a lot. In some cases, I was
Mm-hmm.
alone. Okay, I'm afraid if someone trigger me in the worst way possible, I will not be myself. I was told when I blacked out before, my eye turned black completely. My brother,
Mm-hmm.
my cousin told me that. I didn't believe that. And they told me, yes, you wasn't yourself. So I understood the kind of person I was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I took certain measures to keep myself calm, keep myself collected. I don't be around surroundings that would trigger me to the point where I just lose it.
Mm-hmm.
If I go work out in the gym, I'm trying to work out until I'm extremely tired. So whatever unfiltered way that's hiding underneath me doesn't come out. So I understand pain and misery, just that I had to live with it most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So dealing with death, both my parents are gone. The first thing came to my mind, there's no point in me go back to Nigeria anymore. So it's no longer my country. I got
Mm-hmm.
no real ties anymore because the kind of family I have over there, I don't trust them.
Yeah.
So imagine how that felt. I'm an African, but I'm cutting my tie to my root to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense, but that exact real feelings I have.
Mm-hmm.
So
Peter, do you sometimes have that same feeling also? Again, just given what happened with your grandmother, uh, your ties to Greece at some point, just seeing what the reaction was. Did you ever come to that point in time where you felt like just cutting off and just saying like I don't have the love there as I may have once did at some time? Because what David's saying is pretty dramatic, you know, where he's like, I have no ties to not, even though yes, I'm part of this cult, this long culture, Yoruba culture and whatnot, but just given the family dynamic, which you were just talking about earlier, how you felt like by yourself, but you know, have you had similar feelings of being somewhat disconnected from a lot of the cultural weight that comes with being a Greek person of Greek descent?
When I was younger, when I'll say mid-20s, when this, yeah, I can say mid-20s, more early 20s, late 19s,
Mhm.
yes, because I was into the rap music, you know, into everything non-Greek.
Mhm.
With that happening, that pushed me away a lot.
Mhm.
And at the time, I didn't really have any Greek friends. I just hanged out with, you know, my American friends. Half
Yeah.
my friends were Irish, Italian, Black, Spanish.
Mhm.
Pick your poison, pretty much.
Right.
We all were crazy motherfuckers, but we were friends.
Mhm.
We had each other's backs and all that stuff. I start coming around in circle years later. 2011. When I said, no, I need to get back to my roots. And I did.
Mhm.
It took a few years, but I did.
Mhm.
I did have that disconnect. But I never forgot about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 But that takes a lot of work because, again, you got to go back there. And like you said, you had to have some encounters with some people who you had to be kind of restrained from because of that treatment, again, that your grandmother got. So again, those were some very uncomfortable conversations that you had to that you had to deal with, but you were able to come back to a sense of pride in your Greek heritage, in your culture, that and you're they're able to sort of coexist with you, also with your American identity, because so you're very much that as well.
Yeah. It's something that's very hard to carry. People don't realize it. I don't care if you go to a therapist, talk to friends, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation, I believe it was last year, with CQ at his house, hanging out for a weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
He has different opinions about death than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some people say, it's my time, it's time. I accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
During the days that I stay up with panic attacks, panic attacks was sweat pouring down my floor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because as much as religion can step into this, or beliefs, or whatever you want to call it, we really don't know what happens after death. We think we know, but we don't really know.
Yeah, you're trusting in something that you can't see necessarily. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to show a little bit about CQ that he opened publicly. He's been KI'd, killed in action once. Got shot 13 times, I believe. And he came back, and everybody asked him the same question like I did.
Yeah, what happened?
Did you see the light? What happened?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, like what happens? Yeah, like you were about to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes, and the same comment he says on his channel too. I just remember waking up. King Smith, for example, very good friend of mine too. We have two different beliefs. He goes, after death, there's nothing. Everything stops. What do you believe? And that's what a lot of people are scared of. Is the next step. What is it really?
Yeah. Yeah, is there a knife beyond this one? I know, David, when you were showing the slides of the rituals, there was that last part that dealt with the afterlife, and it kind of reminded me of that scene out of Black Panther. There is sort of like this ancestral plane that you believe that the departed souls go to and meet the ancestors that are there. So again, that was like the first thing I thought about when I was reading that segment. We didn't get a chance to touch on it much, but there is there is a general belief, whether it be from traditional tribal religion or what have you. There is this sense of afterlife that departed souls go to and be united with and connected to. Now, whether or not there's the belief that people can connect to those ancestors through some ritual or whatever, that's another conversation. I don't necessarily want to get too deep into that, because that gets more into a religious conversation. Like I said, I just want to.
I'll leave that to Ekene if he can come on the show, because I try not to get too deep, because the more I get deep, the more I start to deal with the deep pain that I try my best to cover up. Because, like I said, after a father, I love my kids, I love my daughter, I love my grandkids, but I could be a little bit too strict, because I want the best for them. I wanted to surpass me by all means necessary. But it scares me that the fact that I wanted to know my culture, but at the same time, I don't want to set foot in my own country. So I'm trying to figure out how do you bridge the? It's confusing, because I had not too much great memory from my father's side of the family nor my mother's side of the family. There's a lot of things that I don't want to revisit ever again, and it sucks. I'll put it crystal clear. I don't have a child. I never had one. I lost my child at the age of 4 or 5. All I know is responsibility and accountability at a very young age.
Yeah.
So for a guy like me who say we never take a vacation over 25 years and counting, that is factual. So I don't know what to tell you, but.
Yeah. And that's similar with me too, because I started taking my mom at a very young age. Vacation. What is a vacation? Because if you're on vacation, you're always checking up on them.
Yeah.
The only difference is you can take a break of go here, run here, take a call to doctor, go this, do this. It slows down a little bit. He doesn't stop being a caregiver. Even thousand. If I'm even, let's say, argument second, I use BMU as an example. I was visiting BMU in Texas. I'm still a caregiver all the way from Texas to PA, no matter what. I'm always that person.
Yeah.
We don't ever get a break.
Yeah.
Don't get a vacation. We go.
Right.
But the question is, when do we stop?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to stop when the time comes. I want to maybe take a little break right now, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
As a single person, meaning not married, of course, I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's there to back me up who lives in the house with me, like a
Mhm.
wife.
Yeah.
You don't get any backup. Yeah, people offer. I have a couple of people who actually help me out a little bit, like walk the dog once in a while for me, or helping pick up her medication or whatever in the chats.
Mhm.
But I can't put that burden on them. That's not their responsibility; it's mine.
Yeah.
Nobody's there to really say, "Hey, how about we watch?" Family. I mean, wise. Hey, go away for a weekend. We got this. I don't have brothers. I don't have sisters. I don't have no cousins.
Right.
Think that's right? No, but it is what it is.
It's the cards you've been dealt. It's
Bingo.
and the idea is that you got to play the hands that you're dealt. Which again, I go back to a point I said earlier that for a lot of people, we don't want to admit it because it doesn't sound very good. But oftentimes, when that burden gets lifted, it is a relief for more people than they want to realize. But again, the culture aside says, well, I can't say that or whatever. But yeah, I mean, not being able to carry that weight. People ask themselves, when do I get to live? When do I get to experience life in a way? And when do I go after the things that I desire? And I got friends like that. I got friends who've been taking care of their parents since high school. And it affected everything about them, their social lives, their personal lives, or whatever. There's been a lot of impact because of that burden that sometimes that they have to bear. They never kind of got it started. And so we can say, hey, suck it up. That's your parents. You got to take care of them. But people have they have emotions too, and they have needs too that need to be addressed. Yeah.
Shout out to No Cap Freezy because he was a perfect example who would take care of his mom.
Oh yeah.
So
Heard about that.
The first thing that came to my mind was No Cap Freezy. I had to go shout out to him because he shared his burden, what he had to go through. He didn't take no break.
Yeah,
So
look up for those who, again, who want. I think we talked about that last week as well. Look up. He did an interview with Candid Ann on her podcast. So again, if you want to Google that or search YouTube for that, very powerful interview. And again, and what we also touched on last week, especially when it comes to parental care, a lot of times this isn't equal. So again, you talk about grooming, having a bunch of siblings. A lot of times that doesn't mean anything.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Because ultimately it may boil down to one. You can have 6, 7 siblings and only 1 or 2 are doing most of the work. And so, so you really, so again, those burdens or the people who have to carry those burdens, yes, it can get very stressful for those people. But I just want to give just a quick shout out. I know we've been talking here for a while. I didn't necessarily come into this with the proper introductions, but again, this is the Gray Area Show. Again, where we like to share different cultural perspectives on different topics. Again, we're talking about this topic of death tonight, and again, so we appreciate everyone who's been on this ride with us. This may take some turns that we didn't necessarily intend for it to turn. But certainly it went to some places, and again, we may have to revisit this in a different time. But again, if you see scrolling at the bottom of your screen, you see our Cash Apps. Again, any support that you want to give us personally, we appreciate. But more importantly than not, we ask that you support the BMU network. I mean, BMU has been quite certainly in the news as of late, getting into different beats with different content creators and all those kind of things. But if you look at the entire channel, 7 days a week, there's content on totally different topics for one another. So our content takes maybe a little bit of a different turn in that, we don't necessarily get into the sex wars or the, what's wrong with this or that. We're just looking to learn from one another. We're just 2 guys primarily, and we got our brother David with us tonight. we're just guys who come from very different backgrounds. But again, the more we talk, the more we realize that there is no black and white, that ultimately everything is a gray area. And when we find the commonality, the good, the bad, and the ugly about what it is to be a human being, we oftentimes explore in these spaces. So again, we're part of this network, and certainly we're grateful to BMU for giving us the platform for us to be able to share this type of content. So again, more importantly than supporting us, we ask that you support the network. All right, consider becoming a member of the BMU network, support on a monthly basis, or send a cash app to the BMU network, and help this channel grow, help us to have even more broader, deeper conversations, meaningful conversations that people can learn from, and share this content with other people who might be going through similar things, just to let people know that, hey, we are more connected than we are different. But I just want to give shout out to the chat again, Inania, who's been in here tonight with us most of the evening. Thank you for coming through. Stacy Beast 79, thank you for joining us. Marina Constantine, thank you for joining. Corey Hagan, my brother, I appreciate you coming through here tonight, giving me your support. Again, congrats on your new book that's coming out. Definitely looking for to talk about that. Almanai 78, again, she was sharing back in the chat that, again, she had lost her parent recently. And just the process that you have to go through, the grieving process that people oftentimes have to go through. So again, we're wrapping our arms around you as well, that, certainly you gain strength through this process. And just from this conversation that you're hearing tonight, you're not alone. I mean, people go through drama, especially at these at the worst of times. And we appreciate, certainly you coming through tonight. Again, Rebel 95. Again, thank you for stopping through tonight. The Mrs. O show just came in for a minute. Definitely catch the show, the replay of this show. Pop Culture Warrior, good friend of Peter's. Thank you for also for coming through. And the Queen certainly is in the house. Lady Navoa, thank you again for stopping through here tonight and joining this conversation. Lastly, we have Elevated Mind Healer. Again, thank you for your support. Thank you for promoting the channel. And yes, if you came through here tonight, certainly all we ask is just click the like button when you come in. It really helps the algorithm that we can continue to share content with people. One final aspect.
Two major things, Paul.
What's that?
Okay. If you guys are wondering, on this network, is the only one real Greek. I'm the only real Greek here, so keep in mind we are streaming on 2 different platforms, so hit sub on both platforms.
Both platforms,
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and BMUs. Like, share, subscribe on both platforms. We're growing together. We're a team. He might be the big kahuna, but we're both our team. We're both on the same page. But again, I am the only real Greek on the network. So here we go.
Absolutely, yes. Grooming and Reviews 101. Look him up, like, and subscribe to his channel also, because he does content, a lot more content outside of the BMU space. I mean, he's always doing, product reviews, health, fitness. He does a lot of different things on his channel as well. So definitely consider supporting my brother as well. I'm still not there yet. I'm still working out. If I was going to launch my platform, what the area is going to be in, I just like being in good, positive conversations. But I'm sort of fleshing it out. God willing, in the next year or so, I'll put something out there on a regular basis. But again, we just appreciate you guys for being here.
The last thing I want to say to you, Paul.
Sure thing.
And I think I speak for me and David. After us having a cry face on camera, on live camera, by the way, you owe us dinner at least.
What do I do? I didn't.
This was your fucking idea. Remember, this is your idea. You got to take full responsibility for this one.
All right, well, that's fair. That's fair. All right, so we need to let's get the band together over the summer, and let's plan to have it.
Like a high-end steak dinner, like a tomahawk.
Now I want to drain me. That's okay. That's
Listen,
okay.
You don't drink, so at least I can do
anything that supports the network, I'm willing to do for you guys. All right. But I just want to move into a final segment of the show, and I know we're coming up on near the end of the show. One aspect I definitely wanted to kind of level set on a little bit, since we went so deep we went so emotional this segment here, to kind of bring it back to a more practical perspective. Because again, one of the things that we have when we talk about death and whatnot, a lot of things, and your mom, Peter, talked about that, was the cost and the financing that oftentimes is associated with burial. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't do the proper planning when it comes to life insurance. You find out a lot of times that a person at one time might have had life insurance, but for one reason or another, they allow the policy to lapse. So you realize, oh, well, yeah, my parents have life insurance. And then you realize that they don't at the end. And then all those phone calls and scrambling to get, hey, I need $500, I need $1,000, I need whatever, because the cost of funerals are certainly going up. Just looking at some recent statistics, cost of a funeral could be anywhere between $8,500 to $10,000, and that, and again, that's depending on where you are. So here's just a cost comparison. All right. So again, when you talk about a burial, consumer fees, transportation, the embalming process, preparation of the body, facilities, the hearse, the van, the metal casket, all the things that are involved. And even then, 7,000 to 10,000. I borrowed my dad for about that on the upside of 10. So if you're in the Northeast area, it can be a lot more than that when it comes to burial. Now, one thing that kind of surprised me a little bit was this idea of cremation, because what's starting to happen is this market is booming. And a lot of it is because of the costs that are involved. If I go through the slides, if you see here, this map here, this talks about the places in the world where cremation is practiced. So if you look in Africa, for example, this kind of surprised me when I saw it, and maybe, David, you can speak to this. Cremation is not a thing. I thought that cremation was like amongst the primary ways of burial within Africa, but I was stunned when I saw this and seeing that cremation is in many ways something of Western cultures where it's highly practiced. But look at North America, look at U.S. and Canada. Cremation is on the rise because it can be on average. Now, again, the previous slide, it talked about being roughly about 30% cheaper than a burial, but you can go even cheaper than that. I put a YouTube video that I can certainly put in the main chat. That definitely a guy, he does a really nice job of breaking down the cost. If you just want just a quick cremation, you can probably do that for certainly under $2,000. If you want something just quick, you don't want the ceremonies, because they're saying cremation and burial is still doesn't cover things like if you're gonna have a wake or if you're gonna have a church service, all those things, all those fees involved, you can still have that. For some people, the cremation is like you're dealing with like the last part of the process, where how the body is either disposed of or how its ultimate, what's its final resting place is. But when you start adding up the fees and costs to have a funeral, to have the food, the repasses, and all those fees associated with it, again, it can really put a lot of families who don't have a lot of money. I mean, we can certainly have another show on financial saving and financial planning. But the reality is, for most Americans, average income in this country is $50,000 or less. And so, for most people, all right, no one's necessarily prepared for the cost of a funeral, all right? They don't have insurance, if not life insurance, at least burial insurance to cover some of these costs. And so when it hits you, people are starting to look at other options. I know we had our guy, our paint, he talked about him and his wife, they just bought some burial plots. But he realized that the one regret that he's had was that he didn't buy that burial plot some time ago, because the cost is going up. If you live in the tri-state, go by some of these cemeteries, they are packed.
They just meant because I believe we paid about almost $13,000 for a plot for my mom.
Yeah, it's going up. I mean, it's all about real estate here. And so again, in urban areas, in metros, the cost of real estate is going through the roof. Just you think homeowner prices are going up. The same thing with these plots. So it may not be out of the ordinary to consider first of all where you want to be buried, but then considering buying, investing in something like that now versus trying to deal with the urgency, because that's another thing. When you're desperate to get something, a lot of people know it. And so, and a lot of times when we saw tonight how brothers get emotional when you're dealing with certain things, you might not be in your right mind. And then you have people who can talk you into buying things that are unnecessary for the funeral. And so it leaves a lot of families in trouble. And again, a lot of times you can have a bunch of siblings, But more times than not, it's the same siblings that are dealing with the bulk of the cost, because the other one's like, well, I ain't got no money, man. I wish I could help out, man. But hey, man, if something comes through, I'll give you some money. But a lot of people don't have the money either. So guess who's having the burden? Guess who's maxing out their credit cards to get something paid off? Yeah.
It could be that, or it will be a case where if that particular person exchange, they feel like they're not responsible for the cost.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Y'all didn't want me in the family anyway, so I ain't paying nothing. So you calling them up, say, hey, mom died. Again, the quality of relationships, you're either gonna pay now or you're gonna pay later. But I just want you guys, again, take a look at this map here, where again, the darker the color, the more that cremation is being accepted as a practice in Canada. I was really surprised. That is a primary option in Canada. Most Canadians get cremated. All right. If you look at the Far East, you look on the right side where Japan is. Again, cremation is there. I knew Indians is kind of 50-50. Some people, some depending on the region, some people are into cremation, some are not. And in China, it's relatively practiced because, again, you got 2 billion people over there. Where's the real estate? Where are you going to have 2 billion grave sites?
So it's
Africa.
Yeah.
I want to touch base on this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch base on with the Greek side of it. Greek religion says we came from the ground, we're going to return the ground. If you remember, at least in the Greek Bible,
ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I know somebody's sister passed away recently, and she was to be cremated, Greek, and it was an uproar in the family. Saying you can't do this. This is, anti-Christ. Yada yada. It was literally. I thought they were going to kill each other. I thought it was civil war is going to break out. To the point, like when I was talking to both of the side of the family, because the parents are divorced for shit, I don't know how many goddamn years, and I literally had to get in the middle and push them back, hold them back, like, yo, you guys are not going to swing in front of me because I don't need no freaking domestic violence case right in front of my eyes. Long story short, she did get cremated, but it ripped such a tore against the family because they didn't bury her. It wasn't about money. It was about.
Now, I just want to revisit real quick as far as now from a Greek Orthodox perspective. Cremation is okay, or is only burial? What's that?
Sin. It's a sin.
So
actually,
cremation is a sin.
Yes.
Okay, because that also runs. Now me being Christian, from my perspective, just from what I've read and studied over the years, I haven't seen from the scriptures, which is certainly why I know with the Orthodox, it's basically the church interprets the scriptures, based on tradition and how they interpret the scriptures and whatnot. But just from a base reading, if you're someone who like myself, I treat the Bible as sort of like the ultimate authority. I've never seen anything in the scriptures that totally outlaws cremation. I know historically, pattern wise, especially in the Old Testament, when people died, David was buried with his ancestors and Moses was buried with this person, but I never saw an outright prohibition of cremation in the scripture. But to your point, though, that certainly has an impact on people's reasons for doing it, which is why, again, on the North American side, that color pattern really is surprising. And even in South America, you look at Argentina, because these are Christian based countries that certainly have a Christian foundation, and even you look in Europe, it's happening. So it's like in these countries, a lot of them are statistically they're moving away from this idea, well, we can't cremate because that's a sin or whatever. And also just given practical considerations, it might be cheaper than the traditional burial and all the other things that are involved in it. So I just found that these numbers were interesting, but there's some more numbers I have here. If you look at just the increase in the numbers between 2019 and 2023, again, the increases in the rapid growth period, 40 to 60% in for the previous 15 years is expected to slow, but not to reverse. So again, there's been a large increase in cremations overall. This site here, the CANA, I guess there's like an association of those who practice cremation. They've seen a huge spike in cremations, certainly over the last few years. And I think the last slide I have here, they're looking at the trends. Okay, so from 2023, and even in the U.S., the increase in people choosing this as an option, not to deal with, again, the burdens that a traditional funeral would cause. So I think a lot of people, whether, I know some people still think, hey, this is kind of creepy that we're even considering this, but the trend is growing because, again, there's some, the pros being you don't need a tombstone, you don't need a burial site, and all those costs that are associated with it. It is becoming more of an option for people. So if the Orthodox Church is still steadfast as that an option, then these statistics may not apply. But for a lot of Americans, a lot of Protestants, I would say, or certainly those who are agnostic or whatever, they're starting to move in this direction. So I found those numbers interesting, and I already know, and in my family, one of my sisters has already said that she's already got in her will already that she desires to be cremated. And so certainly I certainly don't at this point intend to go against those wishes of hers. So she also had me as one of the executors for her will. So I will certainly honor her wishes then. But certainly for those in the chat, how do you guys feel about this idea of cremation versus burial? If it is ashes to ashes, dust to dust, then does it really matter in the way that you are? That you come to that place? Do you do it through decay or do you do it through burning? And I know, like I said, in a lot of Asian countries and whatnot, I know this is a practice. Back in the day, they used to set up these pyres. Like if you remember Peter, Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader, Luke set up that big old pyre and he kind of died there. And a lot of people say that.
Thinking of that, like back in the ancient Greeks.
That was the thing.
The fairy. That's
exactly.
The toll for a fairy.
And even in ancient called like Conan the Barbarian. I think Valeria. I think she was burned on a pyre. So that just seemed to be a thing.
Vikings used to be on a boat and they used to burn the crap out of it, and he used to put artifacts that he wants to bring to the next life, Valhalla. I think Egyptians were similar too. Except getting buried, they were mummified. So burial has been around for hundreds of years, and cremation, excuse me. So which one is better than the other? I don't want to say one is better than the other. I think it's price really. What is your pocket can reach?
Yeah, and like I said, just with the rising costs of burials, or like I said, the funeral. I mean, you can spend $500 on a casket, or you can spend $15,000 on a casket. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can have the limousine procession that's there. Again, what you pay the church, what you pay the caterer, what you pay the whatever. And again, people, like I said, a lot of times people don't necessarily make the wisest decisions in those moments when a loved one's died. And then, sometimes you get the pressure. It's like, oh, well, mom would have liked this. Or dad would have liked this if we did that. And so that's sometimes where again, we talked about the siblings earlier. That's when a lot of times the fights come in, where siblings talk about how they want to be, how mom or dad should be treated. And again, going even deeper than that, those siblings were the ones that I was talking about earlier who weren't even involved. Like, where were you when I was taking care of mom every day or whatever, and you weren't there, and now you want to pull some weight saying at the funeral, oh, well, this is how mom should be or dad should be taken care of. You weren't there taking care of them when you were alive. So what makes it think that at this point that you can now dictate how we decide to deal with her final wishes? So as I said earlier, people get funny at funerals, at when death happens or whatnot, especially if you have siblings. So again, Peter, as much as you lament, and I just in general, I mean, not to grow up with brothers and sisters, I know there's, that you certainly a person can feel a certain way about it, but in some instances, based on some of the things that you've heard tonight or stories that you'll hear in the future, sometimes that's a blessing also. When you don't have so many irons in the fire or so many spoons in the soup, that it's going to make it difficult for you to move, especially when you're the primary caregiver to your mom. So again, I've seen, like I said, families just destroyed because of this very issue, and so again, this is a difficult, but it's an important thing to think about. Another thing that I've seen in recent years, if your parents don't have life insurance, then guess what? A lot of the kids are taking out life insurance policies on their parents, especially if you talk about like burial insurance for sure. The burial insurance, it doesn't necessarily have to be the person on the policy doesn't have to be the one that pays the policy. Some life insurance policies, I know to check your health records and all that, but generally people are starting now to take that investment in their parents. And they said, like, if mom and dad can't afford it, I'll make sure, because they don't want to be hit with that big bill. I know my brother-in-law did that. He's Nigerian, he's Igbo, and when his mom passed, he took out that life insurance policy on her that certainly helped with take care of all the arrangements, and there was some money left over for some other incidental. So that's an option that a lot of people are starting to look at now. A lot of millennials, especially, are starting to look at when it comes to parents. I know my mom, I have her on a burial plan that I'll have money readily available in the instant when she passes, so I don't have to be again making those last minute phone calls and trying to get things together. So that's something that I take care of.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
I don't know. With life insurance, when God forbid the time comes, do you get it immediately, or do you have to wait like a certain time before you?
There's a process. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get anything until obviously when the person dies, you have to deal with the coroner. You have to get the death certificates, and you need multiple copies of those because at least usually, certainly in where I'm at, they give you at least 10 copies. And they're also what do you call it? Not lionized, but they're certified copies. They got the seal on them, because you can't. Some places they want the actual thing. You can't give them a photocopy. So usually from the coroner, they'll so usually they'll give you multiple notarized is what I was looking for. Notarized with the stamp, the press stamp seal on it. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get 10 copies. So typically one is going to go to Social Security to let them know, hey, this person passed. So here's one for Social Security, so they can stop sending, if they were receiving Social Security benefits, that'll stop. With that, unfortunately, Social Security benefits do not go on or get passed on to the other person. So those benefits stop. You need one for the bank if they had any bank accounts that needed to either be closed or consolidated. You need, the bank is going to need one. And for the life insurance is going to need one as well. So depending on when you get the death certificate, and that can be anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks, depending on, again, it's the schedule of the coroner. If you're going to need that, that certificate to make sure all the person's affairs are dealt with properly, they're going to give you, again, multiple copies so you can have to deal with. So again, the funeral home, if you're going to take that option, or the crematory, they're going to need a copy of that as well. So again, it's really the first step is to work with the coroner's office of your county that you live in to get those ASAP. You call the different individuals, the Social Security, the life insurance, all the people, the bank, all the people that need to be involved in the meantime until you get those documents. And then once you turn in that documentation, then they can start the process of submitting, finishing the paperwork and sending you the check or whatever. And most of the funeral homes, they already know that. Like they know that, on the, that process, they work with, various entities and whatnot, whether you pay them directly or dealing with the life insurance company. And sometimes you can even have the payment even routed directly to them. But they'll work with you there. I know the total process for my dad took about 2 or 3 weeks. From the time he got his, I got the documents to the time they took it to him to prep the body. I ordered the casket. Costco, if you want to talk about having a budgetary option, if you don't want to spend a lot of money for a decent looking casket, if you desire a casket, Costco has a program. You can call Costco up, order your casket, and they'll actually send it to the funeral home that you designate. So it's not like going to Costco and picking it up on a.
Time out.
Yeah.
You said Costco, the place you buy food from?
Funeral? No, the casket.
No,
the actual casket.
But you said the Costco is the same place you like the
The place you buy food from. Yes, the same Costco. You can buy, and they have decent prices. They have very decent and competitive prices. I did this with my dad, so I know what I'm talking about. And so, because someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, you might want to check out Costco," because again, I wasn't going to go to. If you try to sometimes walk through the funeral home, they always try to mark up the cost of the product. So we went to Costco, got the casket, got it shipped directly to the funeral home, and they took care of that. I might have spent, I don't know, it was maybe $1,000 or less, between $500 and $1,000, but it was a decent looking casket. It wasn't a shabby looking casket. I mean, they had some pricier ones, but again, very competitive that you got there. So Costco does everything: travel, insurance, they got everything there. You can even get your casket from there as well. And yeah, they made the process pretty simple. It took a little bit to get the life insurance, because it's weird, because my dad, he actually had my sister as the beneficiary, but the problem was that her name was misspelled on the policy, so no one actually knew who was on the thing. So we had to send in birth certificates like, this is actually the daughter. So again, I made sure this time, my mom, the policy I haven't heard yet. Everything goes to me. It'll be a quick process once everything, once everything starts.
When it came to actually burying your father, did it really take that 3 weeks, or did it take 3 weeks to get all the paperwork done? You're saying?
I would say from start to finish, from the time he died to his burial, was about 3 weeks. So again, the coroner took time, because they had to do it they had to do their report on the body. He died of coronary arterial disease or whatever. So they had to figure all that out. Got the paperwork in, submitted. I also had to contact, because he was military, I had to contact the military to get his and I needed to get his military credentials. So I had to get a copy of his service record from the government in order to have him buried in one of the military cemeteries. Because again, he didn't have a plot, he didn't have a gravesite. But if you're military, they'll provide all that stuff. You just have to prove and demonstrate that you were in the military. So the day he at the burial site, we went to the military cemetery. They played taps. You get the flag folded and everything. I still have his flag folded in the house, and everything's the same.
Gun salute, right?
They don't do the gun salute. They just play taps on. It's like now they play it on the MP3 player or whatever it is.
I think I'm not mistaken. If anybody in the chat knows, please answer this question. I think it depends on the service you are too, because I know CQ was Army and King was Air Force. I think that comes down to
my dad was Army. Yeah. But they went through the formal process. It was pretty quick. We might have been there about 15-20 minutes. Again, they folded the flag, handed it to us, and that was good. We came up a bit later, a few months later, to visit his gravesite. Now, they still didn't have his engraved plate yet. It was like labeled, with his name written in this thing. By the next year, they had the full plate, and everything looked really nice. So again, if you're military, that covers a lot. And if I even wanted my mom, because my mom and my dad, they never officially divorced. Like I said, they were that generation. Yeah, you could be separate, but you never divorced. The fact that she was his wife, technically she could still be buried in that same gravesite that my dad was, because they never divorced. But I need to make sure that I'm clear on that before I would consider pursuing that option. But if it doesn't happen, then again, I have the burial insurance just in case I'm covered on that end as well. So all those things are things that go into planning, certainly for the death of your parents and certainly death yourself. I mean, I just came out of a policy. I had to roll in to a new policy just to make sure that, again, there's enough money to bury me and a little left over, so my wife doesn't have to struggle too much when I go. So we have those kind of things. The wills that we may need to, we haven't updated our wills in a while. We may have to revisit that, because the last time we had our wills done, our kids were younger. Now that my youngest one turned 21, so we don't have the burden of, you know, who's going to take care of them when we die and all those kind of things. So we probably need to revisit the will. But honestly, you can get a will done. Go to LegalZoom or one of those sites. You can have one drafted up pretty easily, just with the language that you want, and print it out. And it's like for under $100, you get a will. So the will process isn't a
I know they make those very
isn't a
cheap
big deal.
nowadays. You know, like I'm just surprised it takes 3 weeks after our technology the way it is now, with, you know, everything's emailed and all that stuff. I'm just shocked. It's 3 weeks. And I'm shocked it's just Costco has castrix. I'm just
and I think people have to just get over that as Costco, because again, a lot of times they'll try to tell you too. It's like, okay, well, your shop, you know, your mom deserves better than a casket from Costco. I mean, they kind
my
of.
mother told me, you heard what she said. She wanted me to get her the cheapest.
Then Costco would be a great place to
pay what, 5,000 for casket. You're gonna cry over it and put it in the ground, and it's gonna rot away.
She's a very wise woman when it comes to that sort of thing. Because again, money at the end of the day, it's going to be a factor in you know, that process. And you know, but I know even before we had the show tonight, again, there was potential. I know BMU, he had reached out to some folks who actually own a funeral home, or funeral home business. And certainly I would like to talk to those guys to certainly get their perspective in terms of how they help families through this process.
Can you give me at least a month break from this crying part?
We could certainly take a break from it. Like I said, I don't want to have guys
I'm not gonna lie to you, it took a lot out of me.
Yeah, but it's part of the, like I said, I think initially, well, you're the one who started this, because it was on your show a couple Thursdays ago, where it's myself, it was R. Payne, and it was Lost in Translation. They're my witness. So you started talking about some of this stuff, and then I was saying that, hey, you know, we probably need to have a show on this or whatever. But it was within that conversation that this whole thing came up, to talk about, again, taking care of your parents. Then talk about and I just figured, well, death would be just the next part in the process. But again, if we ever visit this again, I think, again, the grieving process or the aftermath after death is certainly something that is, again, that's probably the heaviest conversation, as those who watched tonight, you've seen. This can lead people in a certain way, with certain emotions that take, you know, years to deal with. And so it's not an easy process for anybody who's going through that and still dealing with that. But you know, it is part of this life. And even after death, the issue is you still have to deal with life, and you have to live your life and live it to the best of your ability.
In my defense, you text me that night and says, "Hey, we should do a show on parent care or whatever it was."
It was in the show. Go back and watch the show. It was in the show itself. It was towards the end of the show. And
which one? You gotta help me out here, dude. I got so many.
It was like It was 2 Thursdays ago. I'd have to go back and I'll text you later the exact. But it was like wasn't this past Thursday, but I think it was like the Thursday before last.
Are you talking about the marriage one I did?
I think it was it was marriage. Yeah, and then R. Payne, he started talking about how, you know, him and his wife got the plots,
I'm gonna
and then it just kind of came from there. So
they had a plot.
So R. Payne, you're the one who owes grooming and Davidson some dinner
too, by the way. Because then I'm gonna put you in our plot, because I'm not getting emotional like this. I feel embarrassed, by the way, so you know I cried on camera.
Nothing to be embarrassed about, brother. I mean, like I said, this is the real. This is, you know, the level of transparency that I think you and David were willing to. Yeah,
I know BMU very well by now. This is completely one of his shorts or a clip. So yeah, it's good content. A grown ass.
Very good. Yeah, very good. So for those who are just on a wife school podcast dropped on to see us tonight, again, salute you. Thanks for coming in. Certainly you can look forward to the replay. And for everyone who was on here tonight, who went on this journey with us tonight. Death is one of those things we don't want to talk about. But as I said earlier, in the stories that you heard, real life stories, nothing just philosophical here. This is, real stuff that happens to real people. And, it doesn't matter what culture that you're in. People are going to be selfish. People are going to have the wrong perspective when they look at this stuff. And it just creates situations that don't need to be. So again, as much as death hurts us, we still have to live. And we have to, go on and be the best versions of ourselves and find peace within ourselves to keep pressing on through life's challenges. Death is just one of them. And for some of us, we've had a lot of it. For some of us, we're just starting to experiencing it. I don't even know what else happened. Like when my dog is turning 6 years old. And, he started developing like a low arthritic hip condition or whatever. And, so, he seems like he's getting better now. But, I just started thinking about this. Like, I never lost a dog, but I can't imagine what that's going to be like. So I certainly don't deal with death very often.
I can speak from experience when Berkeley's passed, and I got his tattooed right here, his bone and everything. It was hard. Yeah, I could not be in the room. I regret that part. I'll tell you right now, Paul. When in time comes, hold them. Don't be pulled out of the room. Till Alex came in my life, I was with somebody else at the moment, and she looked at me like, "You need a dog." Like, you can't. Like, I was going over to her house just to hang out with her dogs.
Yeah.
I was literally getting up at night thinking I'm here to hit chain, and was like, I was like having PTSD in a way.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you, it is hard. But it did. If you know it's coming, I'm not saying it's easier, but you can at least kind of like brace it in a way. But us was very sudden. He went for a stomach surgery, and then he went back in a week later. He had brain cancer, and they looked at us 3 options: option A, B, or C, and all 3 of them equal to B.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah, it could be devastating. Yeah, I mean, certainly.
And for us we had the option then either to bury him or cremate him. We ended up going cremating because honestly, it was like, where I'm gonna bury him. I rent a house. I don't have my own place. Right. So that's why we went with that.
Yeah. So I don't know how I'm gonna handle that when that kind of comes. I hope it's like from 10 years from now. I hope he lives to 15 at least. But these are just real.
His breed, because we have the same breed, live between 15 and 16, even up to 17 years.
Yeah,
if you take care of them, of course.
Absolutely. So hopefully, we can. But just seeing him develop that arthritis, I'm like, man, he's only 5.5 years old. But they say, that's middle age for dogs. So so certainly to get susceptible to some things early
Hercules,
on. But
he was a mixer of Beagle and Dachshund, more Dachshund than Beagle.
Yeah.
He was 16 when he passed.
Yeah, that's a long life. And, like I said, I'm just hoping.
It's like losing a family member.
I
have literally getting scream matches with people. So it's not the same. Like, it is, you motherfuckers. It is the same. It's like that's my son to me.
Yeah, well, just from a physiological. it's the same endorphins, those love hormones or whatnot, that oxytocin or whatever. It's the same thing in them and in us. They've done CAT scans, and they've demonstrated that the bond with your pets is certainly can rival that of children or what have you. And again, some parts of the world that's an outrageous concept, but certainly here in Western culture,
anything insane? Screw you.
Absolutely.
So,
we're gonna wrap the show up, but again, this has been an interesting trip tonight. The wife school, she loves her cat. Trey Ferg, thank you again for swinging on through here tonight. Appreciate you, brother.
Trey, what the hell have you been experiencing?
Happy Father's Day, and hope that certainly you had a blessed one today. But we're gonna wrap up the show tonight. So again, this has been, like I said, an interesting trip that we've been on tonight. And but again, this is one of the realities. This is the part of the process of life, so we spent some time over the last couple of weeks dealing with it. We promise the next show we do will be maybe a little bit on the lighter side, so we won't have to go down this path for a minute. But we certainly appreciate you guys being with us on this ride. And again, go back and certainly watch the video. And again, if you know people who are going through things, so share the content. Just understanding that people aren't alone and that again we're all in many ways we're all in this gray area together, will help us to find comfort and strength in numbers. That if we can get through some things, you can get through some things as well. So
only thing I gotta say to that,
yeah.
Paul, is
What's that?
because a grown ass man cried. You owe us at least a subscriber. That's all I'm gonna ask in the chat.
Subscribe to the that's right. Subscribe to grooming. Subscribe to grooming. Grooming
both
reviews
channels.
101 channel. Yes, both channels. Make sure you subscribe to that.
Yeah, at least you get us that because two grown ass men cried like babies tonight. So yeah, you owe us that, mates. I think it's a fair trade.
I think so. It works for me.
Yeah.
But I'm Mr. Bennett. He is Grooming and Reviews 101, aka the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panagiotis. And special thanks to his mom Anna for once again gracing us with her presence tonight and sharing her very intimate story of dealing with death and just her attitude. She seems to have the proper attitude when it comes to it. And again, very grounded, in her outlook. Love having her on. Look forward to having her on
really fast.
on a future edition of the
She's
show.
gonna become a regular soon.
Okay, so we gotta have that an Anna spot. So we may need to, some BMU place creates like an intro. We need some intro music for her when she comes on. So this is Anna's segment, and she owns the space. So we
don't give her any.
But with that, again, have a great work week. Have a great week. Again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and all for the men who are just holding it down. And yes, we're saying men. All right. So again, in the BMU space, we're not talking about women who, yes, I raised your son, my kids. I was the father. We're talking about men. We're uplifting men, brothers, uncles, granddads, mentors, teachers, coaches, all of those who certainly have stepped in the gap, been fathers to other people's children, those who raised stepchildren as their own, for all those who are going to the struggle, those who had to battle the system in order to care for your kids, all of those men, we're lifting up tonight and wishing you, again, a very blessed, happy Father's Day, and continue your journey to be better men and better fathers to your children in the future. So with that, have a great work week. We'll see you next week. Take care. God bless.